Hello, I am Dave the Amateur Magus. This is a very special episode because I actually have a guest on today. Uh, this is, I will let you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Lon Milo Duquette.
All right. Uh, yes, so you are kind of the Lon Milo Duquette, the guy who is, I'm pretty sure everyone has at least heard of you if you've seen an occult textbook or book or any kind of occult publication. You've at least probably seen you as the editor. Is that pretty accurate? I'd say.
Well, I've edited a few things, but it's mostly um, yeah, they're kind and called me an editor.
Okay. I think every year I see, like, I at least recommend a book that I've seen you at least attributed as editor or you've written the forward on. So
Yeah, I write a lot of forwards and
yeah.
stuff, but I've got about 20 titles. As a matter of fact, I've got 21 now titles of my own.
Yes.
So,
And I actually don't have it with me. It's in my study. But you recently put out a new book, Tarot Architect.
right, the Tarot Architect. That's all I've been thinking about lately. It's on my mind. It's obsessing me. I'm I'm shamelessly promoting it. I'm embarrassing myself. I'm talking about it so much. So
Yes. So I you've done such a good job at that. I have retroactively gone back in time and bought myself a copy. So thank you for promoting that to to
you're
future
welcome.
me, and then future me told past me.
You don't have to read it, but just go ahead and buy it. That'd be
I actually have been reading it though.
oh, good. Then we can talk about it.
Yes. I haven't read all of it because quite a compendium, and for the better half of the day it got here, it was hiding. But it's there's a lot of books on tarot. There's a lot of books on tarot. I think that's pretty. I don't think that's a very controversial statement. Um,
No.
I'd like to just start by thanking you for assuming that people know the basic gist of what a tarot deck is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the first opening page, it I don't have it with me, so I can't quote directly, but you kind of just assume that somebody has like the cultural knowledge of what a tarot deck is.
Yeah, just sort of basic, but there's a lot of people who aren't particularly esoteric or magical or
Mm-hmm.
kabbalistic or but they just enjoy tarot. There's tarot collectors, and there's lots and lots of tarot readers who use the deck and are familiar with uh, the efficacy of how it serves as a divinatory tool, but a lot of them don't understand that there's a very good reason why the tarot deck is a very good divinatory tool. So it's a lot of people use the tarot and you know say, "Wow, I think it works," and but not all of them realize that there's very good cosmic reasons why the deck works.
Yes, and the first section of the book specifically, from what I've read, is really getting you. It's really more of a guide on how to connect with tarot and like how to use that as kind of the blueprint, how to have tarot be the architect of your inner world, as it were.
Yeah, the idea of the book is literally uh, a step-by-step process of installing in a very systematic way, installing the tarot deck along the pure Kabbalistic lines of how the Kabbalah says that existence was created. So if you create your own tarot deck in the same order that existence came into being, in a sense, you're installing a full tarot deck inside yourself. So that if you work with a tarot deck outside of yourself, you're actually working with your own inner juices, if you will. You're aligning yourself with those same uh, uh, universal forces and energies that literally hold existence together. And I try to do that. I try to explain that fundamental Kabbalistic structure in the most painless and enjoyable way, uh, and just sort of ease you into uh, building your own, creating your own tarot deck, your own complete 78 card tarot deck. And it's more than just I provide like blank general images, full page images, and not only that, but there's a link to download your own blank. When I say blank, there's the general black line drawings, and then you're given the key, the color codes, and all of the information that card represents in the text, and you have to get out, or you may get out your own uh, crayons or pencil or colored pens or paints, and if you follow along, at the end of the book, you'll have created your own personal 78 card tarot deck. But most importantly, you've installed the tarot deck within yourself in the process of that art project.
And it really is an art project. From what I've seen, I did skip ahead a little bit. The tarot deck is quite thorough. There's a lot of various correspondences that I know that when I first looked at it, a good example is in the Ace of Wands card. You have one of the Enochian tablets, and there are multiple different sections where you have to tell people, don't freak out. There are demonic forces on the cards. They're supposed to be there.
They're supposed to be there.
That is a very good, and I think that's kind of a really important warning to have. How did you come to the conclusion of like what needs to be on the cards?
It's not what needs to be on the cards. It's what's already in the cards.
Okay.
So the few things that I've included, like in the Lesser Arcana, 12 of the court cards represent 30 degrees of the zodiac. So you can find your birthday court card. Are you the Queen of Cups, or are you okay? And the 36 small cards, the 2s through 10s of the 4 suits, are the 36 decans of the zodiacal year. So in other words, you can pinpoint any 10-degree or 10-day period in the year, and there's a tarot card that is assigned to that. And that tarot card has a planetary rulership in a zodiacal house or environment. Not only that, but living inside that decan are classical Kabbalistic angels of the Shemhamferish, okay? And also living within that 10-degree period are 2 of the spirits of the Goetia or Solomonic magic, and people call those demons, and not only that, but the court cards, all 16 court cards, represent the same elemental mix as 16 of the 64 hexagrams of the Yi Ching. So if you have an old dusty I Ching in your library, and one of these court cards comes up in a reading, and you don't know what the hell that guy on a horse might mean in this person's reading, you can actually look up the I Ching divinatory meaning of the card, and perhaps get some more hands-on practical advice than just does this does your question concern a man on a black horse?
Of course, all of the I Ching hexagrams, every single one of them has a poem associated with it. So not only are you getting, you know, not only are you getting a better understanding of that, you're getting like a full story, multiple stories even, on one single piece of cardboard.
That's right. And uh, the Enochian magic system corresponds absolutely, at least the elemental uh, uh, techniques of Enochian magic. The aces represent the elemental tablets of fire, water, air, and earth. So Ace of Wands, I've included an image with the clear lettering of the elemental tablet of fire on the Ace of Wands, and the elemental tablet of water on the and so I have to I include a little background information so that you're not intimidated by the techniques of elemental magic. You just look and go, oh God, that's what that means. It's just like the Ace of Wands, or and there's also tattva symbols. The Hindu tattva symbols are the same elemental mix, like fire of water, water of fire, and stuff, just like the court cards. And I have you actually color your own tattva symbol, because if you really want to get into the meaning of the card, you astrally project into the tattva symbol using the classic Hindu method of meditating on the tattva symbol, and then turning your attention to a blank or a white surface, and then that ghost image appears, and you project into that ghost image and see what life is like in the Knight of Cups or the Queen of Discs.
To get your it's scrying the tattvas is always an interesting experience, and you know, if you have the tarot correspondence on top of that, I feel like that really amplifies it quite a bit. You're going to get different meanings because
Oh yeah, you're going to get your own personal, what it means to you, and actually, who else is it important to have it be important for? Okay, this whole thing is not that there's a big crystallized objective definition to all of this stuff. What it means to you and what it means to me are uniquely our own, and so the idea is to have the tarot installed in you. So you're just not looking up definitions of terms out of a book someplace that somebody else wrote. You're actually, once you've lubricated yourself, once you've inoculated yourself with the essence of the tarot itself, and that's most easily done by just taking a little time and creating your own card using the correct colors, using the correct, I use sound too. I encourage you to have a pitch pipe, and there's meditations and homework where you literally attune yourself, musically attune yourself with the appropriate vibratory note that also goes with the card. So it's a pretty comprehensive book, but I try to make it as painless and as fun as possible.
I would definitely say that the pitch pipe, when I read that that was one of the recommended tools, I will say I did kind of raise my eyebrows, because that is not something, people think of tarot as a very visual experience. We very tactile, very visual. We pick up the cards, we look at the cards, and we try to figure out, okay, what do these fancy pictures mean? So that is that in of itself, the adding the element of sound, the sense of sound, is kind of taking it to a different level. Um, well, I want to ask you, because this I will say this tagline got me to pick up my own copy of the book, because this tagline was really good. You don't learn tarot; tarot teaches you. That's kind of the mission statement of the entire book, isn't it?
It is. It is that lumps it up, because uh, no matter how seriously or how deeply you take your relationship with the tarot, it always ends up with that revelation. It's the tarot that's teaching you, not you learning the tarot. That's what I guess that's what makes it magical.
It and because you are installing, and the meditations are, I will say the meditations are quite good in this. Did I did poke around with some of the ones in the earlier sections. I will say, and I wanted to ask you this. There's a section really early on where you make a mention about how special the element of earth is, and all of the various things that correspond to the element of earth. The suit of pentacles, uh, the world of Ashia. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I never.
There, yes, there is no correct Hebrew pronunciation.
We will still get corrected in the comments. I assure you, it happens
Somebody,
every time.
somebody will be bound to correct you. So
Yes.
just joyously embrace the attitude that there is no correct Hebrew pronunciation.
I like to just assume whatever pronunciation people are using is a way of knowing which type of Kabbalah they're talking about.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Works surprisingly well. But you talk about how the element of earth, and I believe you've also talked in other places about how the Ten of Pentacles specifically, it, they're all really special. That suit in particular is really special. And I think that's kind of interesting, because a lot of occultists and a lot of people practicing ceremonial magic, if you take a cautionary glance at their opinion of that particular element, it is not exactly the most positive.
Oh, well, yeah, that's uh, the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below.
Yes.
The earth is the below.
And
So that tells you right away that the below is as the above. Everything else in between is middle management. Okay. The four suits, to tie it to Kabbalah right away, the four suits: fire, water, air, earth, wands, cups, swords, discs, correspond, representative of the four letters of the great name of God, Yod He Vav He. Now, there's four letters, but it's a four-letter word, but it uses only three letters. The He is repeated at the end. The end one, the He at the end of Yod He Vav He, doesn't even get its own Hebrew letter. Okay.
Has to share.
It's you would think, oh wow, it's the stepchild. It's the lowest of the low. It doesn't even get a letter assigned to it. But what it is part of the is another is a manifestation of the first hay. And the first hay is the you could look at the yod as the first positivity in the universe, or the first positivity, extension, maleness, um, uh, pointy thing,
Projectiveness.
projectiveness, okay, or electrically the positive pole. And the negative pole would be number 3 on the tree of life, which is assigned to that first hay. So yod and hay aren't really two things. They're poles of one thing. That's why what they call the supernal triad on the tree of life isn't really 1, 2, and 3. The top one, the second one, and the third one, Sephira. Uh, it's really just one thinking about itself. The the yod, if we're projected on a tree of life, the yod is really headquartered there in number 2 with its little cap sticking up into number 1. And hay is that number 3. That's where the projectiveness is inserted. Okay. You can't have something that projects without assuming that there is something it's projecting through or into. So that's why it's called the father and the mother. Okay. Yod He, father, mother. The son, Vav, okay, in a sense, is the macrocosmic manifested universe in itself. And that's usually um, uh, referred to sort of as the planetary spheres. And the He, so Vav is really 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 on the tree of life. But lowly He, final He, is number 10 on the tree of life, where all of that actually manifests. It becomes the lowest of the low, but it contains the sludge. It contains the sediment of everything from the highest high to the lowest low. It contains an entire set of the highest high. It is the lowest low, and it contains within itself everything in between. Just look at it as sediment, okay? And the idea is all that sediment, if we look at it as powers, energies, or if you want to get romantic, spiritual beings, settle at the bottom, and the bottom has a little bit of absolutely everything. Number 9 doesn't have absolutely everything in it because it doesn't have any number 10 in it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me.
Number 10 has enough of everything from the highest high to the lowest low that would enable it to clone itself back to Godhead of number 1. That's why number 10 is so freaking important. It's where the invisible becomes visible and contains the DNA to, if properly worked with, can clone itself and you back to Godhead. Now, if we look at it as four trees, the tarot suits as four trees of life. The top tree of life, there's 10 of them, or 10 Sephiroth on the tree of life. The top tree of life would be the wands. Okay, and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of wands. Now, if we looked at it as light being progressively filtered, or notes continually being played on an organ going down, the 10 of wands, the lowest of the low of wands, really has someplace lower to go. It drips down into the top of the next tree of life, which would be the tree of life that represents the cups.
And then the
Oh,
cups would flow down into the swords, and then the swords would flow down into pentacles.
right. But the 10 of pentacles has no place to drip down to. In other words, the only place for the 10 of discs to go is to explode itself back to number 1, the ace of wands. It has nothing to do except clone itself back to the beginning. It's sort of like internal combustion engine that needs a spark plug at the end of the downstroke to shoot it back to the top again.
Really puts into perspective why the Ace of Wands is said to be ignition, and depending on who you ask, it's also occasionally referred to as a renewal card, right?
Yeah, it is a renewal card for sure. Uh, and all of the tens in their own sort of subcategory way do the same thing, but the 10 of discs really has to do it big time. And the court card equivalent of that is the princess or the page of discs. And that's what makes them so special. And that's why I put the princess of discs on the cover of my book, Understanding Aleister Crowley's Thoth Tarot.
Yes. I will say the book, The Tarot Architect, was definitely written with. It feels like it was definitely written with Crowley's Thoth Tarot in mind. Unfortunately, I had picked up a Rider-Waite deck, so.
Oh no, that's fine. If you'll look carefully at the beginning, I say any tarot deck that you have that's a regular 78 card tarot deck, I want you to use it in all of the exercises and stuff. Whatever deck that you have at hand, or whatever deck is familiar to you, use that, because the real cards that you're going to be working internally with eventually is in you. And so use any deck. The Rider-Waite is uh, just perfect for it. Whatever deck you're comfortable with, use it for the exercises. And eventually, if you follow along with the project, you'll end up making your own tarot deck, and profoundly appreciate whatever deck you are using. Hey, have you heard the tarot? It's like a YouTube series called Kippy's Quest.
I have not heard about that series.
It is so funny, and it is so insightful. and it's sort of like Monty Python um, uh, uh, treats every tarot card. Okay, there's 78 of them. They're only about 50 minutes long. It's spelled with a K, Kippy, Kippi, Kippy's Quest, Kwist. Uh, just Google around, just find one, and you'll get the format for every one. It is so well done.
I'll
It is,
have to check that out. 'Cause
yeah.
looking looking it up on my phone really quick, that definitely looks like something I'd be interested in.
Oh yeah, it is. It is, and he's so wise, and he uses the Rider Waite images, but he quotes all sorts of people. He quotes Mary Greer and Rachel Pollack a lot, and the classic uh, Arthur Edward Waite, and it's just he's just, and not only that, but he's really really funny, and I'm of the opinion that uh, very heavy, important, profound things go deeper inside you and are retained more profoundly if they're delivered with a silver bullet of humor. And Kippy has mastered that, I think. So
I will definitely say the people on the channel. I certainly hope they enjoy humor because it's quite often what we do here. So that's good. You're in good. It's in good company, I should say. Um, so there is one. There's one more question I wanted to ask about the book, and less about the book and more of applying the book. Um, so a large part of the book, I would say the kind of central section of the book is personalized relationship with tarot. Right?
yeah.
Is there any sort of weird story you have, like just a tiny story about where you pulled a tarot card and it didn't mean anything? Because I know that whenever people are learning tarot, a common exercise that I've seen and I've recommended, just pull a card a day. And usually, when you're beginning in tarot and you're trying to learn tarot and you're not really connected with the cards, you haven't picked up the tarot architect and you haven't gotten it in your internal world and you haven't installed the tarot deck into yourself yet, right? Um, Usually you'll pick up a card and you'll have no idea what it means. Do you have any funny stories about that?
No, except that it happens all the time to me. Uh, I Many years ago, my deck uh, has been out for almost 30 years now. Um, and my main publisher is Wiser, and which is a very old and very um, honored uh, publisher of esoteric material. And every year, I don't know if they still do it. I don't know if they've done it since the pandemic, but there's been a national convention, a booksellers convention in the United States called the American Booksellers Association, ABA. And it used to be, now it's Book America or something like that. But it's always held in a huge convention center. And everybody who has ever written a book or published a book or did the graphics for a book or wants to write a book or and that's pretty near everybody on the planet, shows up. Okay, and you've got political figures, you've got everybody who's writing a book, and every publisher that wants bookstores to buy their wares has a booth at at the BEA or the ABA, and so Weiser always has a booth, and they usually set it up next to U.S. game systems, which is very handy. But
Oh, very
anyway,
convenient.
yeah, I was. They invited me to come to Chicago and uh, promote my newest book. I don't know what it was at the time. Might have been My Life of the Spirits. But while I was at the booth, um, they asked if I would do very short, like 3-card tarot readings for passersby, and so uh, I volunteered to do that. I was only going to do it for an hour, but that was kind of a nice thing. But when you start shuffling tarot cards, and you've got a total, I believe there's, I don't know how many thousands of people were packed into at that time. It's whatever the big convention center is in Chicago. Um, Once you start shuffling the cards, people start lining up. And so I was only going to do it for an hour, and I was really hot. I could do a little 3-card reading, and the more I am detached from who I'm reading for, the better I read. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's I believe that's a common thing. Is
Yeah.
a common piece of misadvice I would say is tarot readers shouldn't read for themselves because you're too connected to yourself.
Oh, I can't read for myself at all. Gee,
Really?
oh, there's the tower crossed by death. I was hoping that would happen. Um, but when the poor bastard is somebody else, I can say, well, there it is, you poor bastard. No, I never say that to them, but uh, I was Isaiah, for about 3 hours, and I was really hot. And I don't mean temperature wise. I was really doing well. I was proud of myself. But the line kept lining up and lining up and lining up, and I had to pee. Okay. And after about 3 hours, I really did. And after, longer than that, I didn't have to. And I thought, oh God, where did it go? Um, and so I was really distracted. I needed to shut it down, but everybody was so pleasant, and they lined up so patiently. And finally, I had to, point to somebody in line and say, I have to stop after this person. Uh, but the person, and people dispersed, but the person right behind that person was a sweet little middle-aged, uh, well, maybe in her 50s. Um, and she just smiled, and she wouldn't leave. And I said, okay. But I wasn't reading tarot cards anymore. I was just reaching into my head and pulling out buzzwords. Okay. And so she sat down, and I sort of had a minor nervous breakdown. And I thought, this isn't really fair to this person. Um, and I wanted to confess. I wanted to say that, 2 hours ago, I was the Oracle of Delphi. Okay. I was Isaiah. I was a psychic phenomena. But right now, I'm a phony. I'm a phony tarot reader. You know, I'm I'm just pulling buzzwords out of my head. And the first card I drew for her was the Fool. Okay. And I thought that, well, that's the tarot talking to me, you know. And but I just pulled sort of uh, oh, excuse me. The first card I pulled was the Wheel of Fortune. Sorry, I'm telling the story wrong. The Wheel of Fortune. And at least I could, pull from my brain the buzzword. Ah, does this have something to do with a chance or a gamble of some kind? And she just her face just brightened up and said, "Yes, my husband has just bought me a bookstore, and we're here buying, next year's inventory." And I said, "Well, I dodged a bullet there, you know." And so the second card I drew was the Knight of Wands, and which is a guy on a black horse. And I hate court cards. Okay, I just hate them because I don't. Is this about your father? Yeah, it's really hard for me to get a good divinatory feel for the court card, and so I sort of had. I was going to say, "I'm sorry, I can't read anymore. I'm a real phony." But that kind of honesty is not characteristic of me, and and I said, "Oh, I don't know if I can say this on your show." I said, "Oh shit, lady, does this have anything to do with a black horse?" And I just did it as a joke, and her jaw just dropped and said, "My God, my husband sold our racehorse to pay for the bookstore." And I had to look like, "Oh, well, I knew that was coming. Yeah, right, you know." And the third card was the Fool. And I thought actually that was a message to me, but I told her, "Well, no matter what happens, I think you'll have a good time." Um, but I've never uh, read cards for people that exhausted ever again, and I really dodged. I really dodged a bullet. Um, Sometimes I will pull a card, uh, and it's usually and it just might be my attitude of saying I need to be uh, not chastised, but I need to be busted for something because I'm just such a klutz that I deserve to be busted for something. Well, what is it?
Oh, it's always it's an experience when tarot is yelling at you like, "Hey, dummy, you know what to do. Stop it."
Yeah,
Yeah, and then it drops the Fool card on you, like, "This is you right now."
yeah, yeah. Oh, well, anyway, so I guess that's the best story I can come up with.
I think one of the two best ways to teach people, in my experience, are three best ways. The first one is comedy, the second one is a story, and the third is a very long-winded lecture. We do a little bit of everything out here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I try not to lecture too much, yeah. But I end up doing it, you know. My my workshops now are like a lot of them. I did an Enochian workshop just back in April in Joshua Tree, California, out in the desert, and in a beautiful location. Uh, it was indoor location, but Joshua Tree itself is awesome. Um, on Enochian magic. and based on my Enochian vision magic book. And I really did need 3 days, even to just kind of scratch the surface. Uh, so I'm preparing now a more heroic sort of workshop that uses the tarot architect as the text too. So
Makes sense because I mean, Enochian magic is a very dense topic in and of itself, especially the aether system in Enochian magic is a very dense topic. Everyone has their own everyone who's actually tried it has their own opinions on it, and usually the opinions are very positive but very intense.
yeah, they're very intense because it's uh, nobody uh, nobody gets, because everybody is different, and because everybody is resonating at a different frequency of consciousness, and because everybody has their own lessons to learn, their own hangups to overcome, everybody's aether work is totally different than everybody else's. And the angels that appear in visions have different uh, uh, lessons for you to learn. And so it's really hard to say. That's what I hate about guided imagery, even in uh, Kabbalah. You're now arising to the Sephiroth of Hod. You were see a man in an angel, a beautiful orange angel eating fish sticks with his toes. No, see what you see yourself. That's why I love that Tattva's work. Project into the card yourself and see what you need to see. Don't worry about what anybody else said, even if they're great magicians and writers. Don't worry about what they saw. Figure out a way to see what you need to see. And that's what I've tried to do with the tarot architect.
Yes, and I one of the big things for people with vision work. I'm a big proponent of vision work. We love that channel. Love that. One of the things I recommend people is because there is such a there is kind of a problem that a lot of people come into when it's not guided of what do I do, right? That
Oh yeah, yeah. To get you going, all of the little practice things are wonderful. Um, but I have seen written directions that uh, make you feel bad if you're not seeing uh, the right colors or something. Well, obviously you've slipped into the wrong place. I doubt that. Okay. You're lucky if you slipped into any place. Look around, and don't worry if there's too much brown in your vision of Tifereth.
you know
Maybe.
you might you might be like your subconscious or your consciousness might just correspond Tippereth to like a coffee shop in the morning, and so it's like yeah, the sun's coming into a coffee shop, and that's your vision of Tippereth.
That's absolutely beautiful. Or the fact that solar radiation turns leaves that have fallen brown.
Yes,
Um, the I don't like people assuming things for other people.
I've I've come to just tell people if you really are worried about not knowing where to go, just just kind of say to yourself, I am in the right spot in this vision to learn whatever lesson I'm supposed to learn.
Whatever I need to learn now, even if it is an enigma for the next 20 years.
Even if it doesn't make sense right now, if it will eventually make sense.
Yeah.
I think that happened to Aleister Crowley a couple times as well.
Oh God, yeah. He was chewing back and forth on uh, visions of the book of the law, right up till the end. I mean, and that's as it should be. And so,
I've had my own experience with Book of the Law, and it's kind of a funny one. Yeah, so I was doing some work with the goddess Akate, and she told me to read Book of the Law, and I read Book of the Law, and it was really, I had some strong opinions about it, and then afterwards I came to the conclusion that she wanted me to read it. She didn't say I would like it, and and I kind of like, well, it's not exactly false. My favorite section in that entire book is I don't remember which chapter it's in, but whatever spirit he was channeling at the time just says, Crowley will not understand this. I almost wonder if that was a dare. I
or
almost
something like that. Yeah. The fool readeth this and understandeth it not. After a while, it becomes like silver, and then after a while, it becomes like gold. Yeah. I burned my the first book of the law that I read, because it says study of this book's forbidden. It's wise to destroy the copy. Um, this is really early on, and it was back in the very early 70s, and probably 70 or 71. Even I'm not sure my son had even been born, and I couldn't find any Crowley books around. I got uh, the Legend of Aleister Crowley, and I said, well, and I've got the Book of Thoth. I read the Book of Thoth, and a friend of mine was going to England, somebody I gave guitar lessons to, and I said, go to any little bookstore and see if you can get anything by Aleister Crowley. And he brought me back a level press edition of Liber Aleph and a little blue pamphlet, almost size miniature pamphlet of the Book of the Law. And it was printed in Dublin, California. How it got to England, I don't know. But when I got it, I thumbed through and I saw that uh, thing in the back that said the study of this book is forbidden. It's wise to destroy this copy after first reading. Um, I said, "Ooh, that's pretty damn magical. I'm glad this is a paperback." And but I really that really did something to me because uh, I'm in high school and college. I was very, very social justicey, anti-war, very progressive uh, person. And burning a book to me is like the worst taboo in the world. I don't care if it's a bad book. You don't destroy a book. They're
doesn't
it's
matter
like,
what the book is. You should be
yeah,
able
it
to read
doesn't
it.
matter. Yeah,
If it's burned, you can't read why people wanted to burn it in the first place, right?
yeah, no, yeah, that was the biggest taboo in my life. Um, but anyway, so I thought, well, I'm going to make this a magical act here. I'm going to set aside enough time to read the whole thing slowly and carefully, and I'll sort of set up a little thing. I'll light a candle and I'll burn some incense and I'll put on my karate gi, which is the only magical robe I had at the time, and I will make sure I won't be disturbed. And so I told Constance, leave me alone in the bedroom for a while. I'm going to read this book. And I read the first chapter and I went, oh, gee, this is I'm not sure I understand it, but it's beautiful. It's but to love me is better than all things if under the nights. And I said, God, this is great. It's I'm almost horny, And then I read the second chapter, and the second chapter is pretty damn frank, but still it's sort of uh, pragmatically cool, and it says a lot of cool stuff. But then I read the third chapter, and I said, "Oh, geez, Crowley is the devil. This, oh my God, this, oh shit! No wonder everybody called him this is this is. I'm not going for any of this stuff. And so uh, I took a bottle of alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and thurible that we had that was big enough, and I poured alcohol all over it and shoved it in the thurible, and uh, my hands were still wet with alcohol, and I had like book matches, and I while trying to light it, I lit my hands on fire.
Ooh, was it good?
Well, it's a very cool flame for a while,
For a little bit, yeah, but
and blue. It was blue, and uh, I glued before I put the book in the fire. I glued with Elmer's glue every page together because it says paste the sheets from right to left, and that.
so you really turned this into a ritual to get rid of this
Oh
book.
God, yeah. And my hands were shaking through the whole time because this is the biggest magical thing I've ever done in my life.
Up to that point, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And uh, but when I glued every page together, it made the book wet on, on the inside.
So you
On
couldn't
the
light the book on fire.
Yeah, because I did it from right to left and top to bottom. So every page was trimmed on the inside
Oh
with Elmer's
no.
glue. And so that meant when I set it on fire, the wet sections on the edges burned last, but the middle of the book burned from the cover to the first page to the second page, And so I got to read every other, it burned slowly enough that I could read every other page as it burned away, like the opening of Bonanza, you know.
That's pretty magical. I would say that that's pretty magical.
That's pretty magical. And but then I felt, what the hell am I doing? And I I had it made me soul search. What are you afraid of? You're not afraid of that book. There's something in you're afraid of, you idiot. You know. And so I tried in vain to get another book of the law, and I didn't. But I did get that Thoth Tarot deck, which had the address, post office address of the OTO
Mm.
up in Dublin, California, and I wrote them, and it was over a year and a half of letters back and forth before they said I could be initiated, and so I took a bus because I couldn't afford anything else. Took a bus up to Dublin, California, and was initiated into the Minerval degree of the OTO by Phyllis uh, Seckler McMurtry and Grady McMurtry. There's only two people there. Um, and on the evening of my Minerval, they gave me a copy of the Book of the Law, which was the exact duplicate of the one I burned, because they had published the one I had burned.
That that's a that's a crazy. Everyone, this is Lon Milo Duquette. Link to his new book, Terror Architect, will be in the description. Do you have any final words you want to tell the audience?
Yes, please buy the book,
Please.
The Tarot Architect from Weiser. You don't have to read it, but please buy it.
I'll.
Maybe get a 6-pack of them and put them by the door and give them to friends.
You know what? I will also give an endorsement because I actually do own a physical copy of this book. People on the show know that I don't give book recommendations very frequently. Pick up the book. The author himself said you don't need to read it, but I do recommend you pick it up. All right. And as always, hope everyone is having a good day. If you're not having a good day, hope your day gets better. Take it easy. I will see you next time.